Good afternoon to you all. May peace be upon us. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to extend our warmest greetings to our eminent guests. Founder of CRMS Indonesia, Dr. Antonius Alijoyo. Director of CRMS Indonesia, Mr. Aldi Ardilo Alijoyo MBA. Okay, judges of the Risk Challenge 2022, Mrs. Istiharini, Mr. Reynaldi, Mrs. Nita, Mr. Fernando, Mr. Aldi, Mr. Ridono, and then Mrs. Haankuku, Miss Cortney Cowley, Mr. Jeffrey, Miss Laura, and Mr. Frederic, and also the delegates from the National University of Singapore, delegates from Shaheed Sukhdev College of Business Studies, University of Delhi, India, delegates from Institut Teknologi Bandung, delegates from Universitas Internasional Semen, Indonesia, the participants from Hong Kong Baptist University, University of the Philippines, Universitas Gajah Mada, PPM School of Management, Sampurna University, Trisakti University, Institute of Business, ITNB, Universitas Indonesia, Malang State University, also the lecturer of undergraduate program of management, Universitas Katolik Parahyangan. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite founder of CRMS Indonesia, Mr. Antonius Alijoyo, to give us the welcoming remarks. Please, Mr. Anton.
Excuse me, Deba, a little bit hassle on the technical aspect.
Okay. Okay.
Can I start? Is that okay? Yeah. Thank you, Deba, for the introduction. So allow me to turn my head to welcome, of course, the delegation who actually successfully passed on to enter the grand final Risk Challenge 2022. Yeah, which actually relate to the bigger theme, creating responsible and impactful companies through ESG implementation. In short, I just want to emphasize one thing. The idea actually to conduct and to host this competition is not to making someone winning to the others. It is not. But actually, this is basically we are trying to induce the collaborative spirit as early as possible when people at the undergraduate level. So basically, we are trying to share the patience to create and sustain our future together. So this is again not about the winning, because everybody we do hope that actually enjoy the benefits to embrace the initiative and get from the starting now as a student, and when time along, we become the professional practitioner that implement ESG in any of our professions in the future. So for that purpose, I would like to welcome and thank you CG Square, that's the name of the team from National University Singapore, represented by Clinton, Jericho, Mangwan, and Park Jin-ho. And second, the group call it most outstanding, quite awesome, the most outstanding, they call it themselves, from the Institute of Teknologi Bandung, represented by Amalia, Reynard, Wardoyo, Ferdinand, and Jonathan. And thirdly, the team call it our zone, from the International Semen Indonesia, represented by Farah, Galu, and Aditya, and the group called Nonsense, consulting from the Shaheed Sukhdev College of Business Studies in India, represented by Pulkit, Barfia, and Siddharth. And the last but not least, Ceria, from the University of Surabaya, represented by Ansila, Ricky, Handayani, and Clarissa. And of course, then, our appreciation, highly appreciation to this year's judge, Choolwe, Haankuku, thank you. Cortney, Cowley, thank you. Jeffrey Vitale, thank you. You are the youngest, Jeffrey. Yeah. Laura Pedraza, Robles, thank you. And Frederic Ouedraogo. Thank you so much. So I need to stop my speech and give it back to Deba, the energetic MC and the host today. And I'm proud to say she used to be my student. Can you imagine having a such smart student in my country? So welcome to the panelists, and thank you so much for the judge. I give it back the turn to Deba and to all of you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Anton, for the welcoming remarks. Welcome back to the grand final webinar, the Risk Challenge 2022. Okay, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Deba Lutfia, and of course, it's my pleasure to be back to be a host for this event. Okay, this is the last stage in the Risk Challenge 2022, the grand final. Okay, all right, ladies and gentlemen, and now we will hold a group photo session. We would like to invite Mr. Anton with the judges to
here we are.
Photo session. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I will count to 3 and I will take the picture. Okay. Start. 1, 2, 3. One more time. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, and the next. Okay. Sorry, and we'll move to the next segment, the presentation of the finalists. Okay. The first group who will present their work is Nonsense Consulting. Nonsense Consulting from from Shaheed Sukhdev College of Business Studies, University of Delhi, India. Please welcome Nonsense Consulting. Well, okay. Once more. Shaheed Sukhdev College of Business Studies. Team name is the Nonsense Consulting. Hello. Okay. Maybe I'll move to the next group. The group who will present is Ceria Group. Ceria is from University of Surabaya. Yes? Are you there, Ceria Group?
Yes, issue.
We can hear your voice. Okay, Ceria Group. Yes.
Service can be postponed. We have a connection from here.
Okay, connection is bad. Okay.
Can you hear my voice clearly? Because still not good here. We're trying to find another spot.
Okay, okay. We are moving to the next group. Okay, Ceria group. Please prepare for a better connection. Okay, we'll move to the next group. Okay, next group is okay. Most outstanding come from Institut Teknologi Bandung, Indonesia. Please come. Most outstanding group.
Hello.
Yes.
I'm really sorry to interrupt. I'm from Team Nonsense Consulting.
Okay. Nonsense
Right.
Consulting. It's come. Okay.
So the other, we were on another meet and that ended. So we had no idea whether we were to join this meet. I'll just call them. We'll be there in 1 second.
Okay. So can you present your work?
All right, 2 seconds. I'll be just calling my teammates. The meet ended, so we had no idea whether we were to join this meet or not.
Okay.
Right. Just 2 seconds, please. Again, I really sincerely apologize for the delay.
Okay.
Before we begin, since we have time here, I would just like to say that it is an absolute privilege to be presenting our solution before this honor jury. And we hope that you guys like it, and we'll be really looking forward to all the feedback that you can give us. Right. One of my teammates is here. Right. All of us are here. Also, there was one concern of ours. We would like to raise. I mean, we have loved participating in this competition, but there is one thing that the team that is actually we are allowed to change our the slide deck that we submitted. So the team that is going first, it has an inherent disadvantage.
Can we start?
Yes, Siddharth, please.
Sorry, just 1 second. My laptop's glitching. Sorry, 1 second. Okay. Is my screen visible?
No. Right. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start in 3, 2, 1. Good afternoon, panel. We're Team Nonsense Consulting from New Delhi, India. And today we've been presented with a really challenging case. We were given the case of an asset management company, Walden Asset Management. Now, Walden Asset Management typically focuses on ESG investments. Their clients typically are socially responsible investors. But what happens when Walden invests in a company, Emerson Electricals? Emerson Electricals pollutes the environment. They don't make necessary disclosures and they don't abide by shareholders' resolutions. At that point of time, what is the right step for Walden? What is the right step for Emerson? And that is exactly what we're going to present to you today in our risk analysis report of Emerson Electricals and Walden Asset Management.
Right. So through the executive summary, what we try to do is we try to give you an idea, a rundown of what is expected in the further few slides, right? So we have done this through 3 basic steps. Firstly, we have tried to understand what are the risks which are navigated by both Emerson and Walden. Secondly, we've also evaluated their risk management practices. And after following both these steps, we realized that the main problem which exists lies with Emerson, since their risk management in the past has been poor compared to Walden, which has implemented various things like the two-pronged ESG approach, which has allowed it to, improve its risk management practices. So for this, since we understood that the main problem lies with Emerson, we tried to fix our focus on Emerson for the risk treatment strategies that we've suggested in the further slides. Right, next slide, please. Perfect. So here, basically, we have realized that there are a multitude of risks that ESG allows us to solve for both companies, which are Emerson and Walden, right? So firstly, we have business risk, right? So for Emerson, business risk is basically about customer retention and acquisition. So the business environment has developed in a manner that it is becoming increasingly important for various stakeholders to ensure that the companies they engage with follow the best ESG practices. So for example, one major company, Walmart, basically requires all its suppliers to maintain certain standards with regards to the reporting, specifically focusing on sustainability, right? And more companies are paying attention to their overall impact on the environment, and hence there's a chance that Emerson might lose out on prospective clients and deals if the best ESG practices are not followed by the firm, right? But however, for Walden, the risk is mostly about obtaining lower returns and unhappy clients, since at the end of the day, it is an asset management company with the primary motive and objective of maximizing alpha, which is the return, right? While at the same time being socially responsible while investing. So for this, they basically tried to implement ESG in their investment strategy by following a two-pronged financial and ESG assessment as given in the case. Additionally, as the case suggests, most of Walden's clients care about ESG. Therefore, Walden needs to consider various factors related to sustainability and environment and governance before making its decision of investing in a particular company. Secondly, coming to the policy risk. Now, we all know that governments all around the world right now are introducing legislations that are stressing the need to move away from fossil fuels, and Emerson has presence in a number of such industries which are under the scanner, right? So if governments all across the world introduce a greenhouse gas cap, which in all likelihood will happen, and the company's current manufacturing is ill-prepared, then the company might face massive financial damages and reputational risk. And ESG is something which that helps prevent that. Secondly, with regards to Walden, Walden is, as we all know, it's a socially responsible investment firm, and it actively complies with all ESG regulations, even in its investment research. Thirdly, coming on to reputational risk, basically the companies face a reputational risk if they don't try to maintain equity or fairness. So in the case provided, the CEO of Emerson took home 25.3 million, which the press felt was very excessive, and that sort of ruined the reputation of the firm in the market. And if the company pays less to frontline workers, it can cause disappointment and loss of morale and motivation. And this would obviously reduce the overall productivity as well. Secondly, Walden controls the risk of reduced reputation and poor perception in the industry by considering various ESG metric, as mentioned before, as a core part of its fundamental research methodology, right? Lastly, we need to understand the financing risk which exists, financial and financing risk. So the competition to raise funds right now and for the past few years has been at an all-time high with liquidity crunches and interest rate hikes. However, doing well on ESG metrics ensures that people have a better perception of the firm, and it improves the goodwill of the firm. Additionally, a lot of banks and investors recently have started considering ESG ratings while giving out funds. And therefore, ESG allows these firms to raise funds easily and at better rates. Next slide, please. Perfect. Now coming to risk appetite and risk tolerance, let's just understand what risk appetite is firstly, right? So according to ISO 31000, a risk appetite is defined as the amount and type of risk that an organization is prepared to pursue, retain, or take. And before an organization can manage risk, the risk appetite must be determined, right? So while we were understanding and analyzing the case, we were able to understand what the risk appetite for Walden and Emerson individually is. Firstly, trying to understand the risk appetite for Walden, one is that there's a possibility of low returns in short term. Basically, since they focus on ESG investments and have a view of the long term and want to make returns in the long term, there is a possibility that there might be volatility and losses in the short run while achieving that long-term vision. And the firm seems to be okay with that, which makes us realize that this is something which is acceptable to them with regards to risk. Secondly, risky investment, right? So while Emerson, even though it's successful, it has had a lot of shortcomings with regards to environmental concerns, and even after considering that, the firm decided to invest in Emerson. Thirdly, coming to Emerson, there has been a non-compliance of resolutions, and they have been okay with that. So the firm hasn't responded to any requests or for greater ESG disclosures, despite 37% votes of shareholders, where normally after 20% votes of shareholders in a normal scenario, they have to respond to the requests which are made. Next slide, please.
Next, we're going to evaluate the risk management practices that have been put in place by both Emerson and Walden Asset Management in the past. Our overall analysis suggests that Emerson has not been effectively managing risk in the past, right? We'll tell you why in 3 points. Firstly, there's improper risk identification. What does that mean? There was a growing trend towards sustainability that was palpable everywhere. Secondly, Emerson's competitors, General Electric and 3M Corporation, launched and publicized their own green initiatives. Lastly, they had 37% votes on their shareholder resolutions, which is much more than the average 20% votes that these types of resolutions typically get, which means it was quite apparent in the external environment of the business that there was a need to move towards sustainability. However, Emerson did not comply with these requirements. Emerson continued to shroud its GHG emissions and other ESG disclosures. And as per ISO 31000, this obviously means there's no consideration of an external context. And secondly, they could not identify the risk, or they at least underestimated the consequences of that particular risk. What it also suggests is that there's a general lack of agility and adaptability within the business as well. Secondly, the point about lack of communication and consultation, they were repeatedly pursued by Walden on improving ESG reporting, which they did not do. And this is clearly against what ISO 31000 states, right? Which means that you should constantly keep your stakeholders in communication and consultation. It's also a violation of the principle of inclusion that's listed under ISO 31000. In general, what it suggests is that there's a lack of responsible governance in the company, lack of responsible management within the company. Coming lastly to the idea of ignoring the reputational risk. As we talked about before, there's an immense reputational risk given the fact that they faced negative press last year with the high CEO's remuneration. But what they don't understand is that going forward, this makes them even more vulnerable to reputational damage, given the fact that their demand for their products is currently muted in this given scenario. At that point, they need to make sure there's no PR vulnerability, which they have not done effectively. Quickly moving on to Walden, right? Walden has been highly effective at managing risk. Why? First of all, constant communication, as we talked about. They appointed a director of ESG share owner engagement. They provide tailored portfolios to investors, such as the fossil fuel free portfolio, which makes sure first that its shareholders and portfolio companies are apprised, and secondly that their concerns are also catered to. If their investors want to socially responsibly invest, they provide those avenues. The inclusive principle is followed by Walden. Secondly, the idea of implementing ESG norms, right? They constantly follow ESG investing practices. They push their portfolio companies to influence changes in those companies, which means that A, shielded from future government security, B, they follow the integrated approach to risk management as highlighted as in ISO 31000. They're completely insulated against any future possible exogenous changes.
Right. So now we'll be talking about the future. Now, moving on to the next slide. So there are some major risks that the company faces, that Emerson faces. And the idea behind this risk is there have been significant changes that have happened in the economic environment. One thing that grappled the entire world was COVID-19, and it changed the entire landscape of manufacturing. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2020, people didn't return back to their jobs, and this crisis was accentuated in manufacturing. Now, this has a number of ill effects. Now, when people will leave, you'll need to train them. So you'll have more costs piling up. So there are a number of costs. Efficiency costs will also be included in this. Now, before I move on and talk about other risks, I'll tell you why this gravity of this risk is so big. Now, Siddharth, could you move to the very last slide of the presentation? So, Devanabhav, right. So as you can see that there was an industry-wide crisis, and it is expected to escalate majority of the population of United States is aging. So we do need to make a change. Moving back, please. So the changes we recommend are that first, spend on artificial intelligence and AI and look for robotic solutions over the long term. And second, retain your employees by providing them with the best of packages. The second major risk is the business risk, nickel prices. Basically, nickel prices, they are growing out of bounds. And nickel also represents all the supply chain risk that is major for the company. Now, the second major thing that grappled the world, the business world, is the Russia-Ukraine crisis, which has actually created a lot of supply chain problems. Now, the company must do something to avoid this. So what do we recommend? We recommend that they can enter into over-the-counter derivatives, and alternatively, they must look for other methods as well. They must invest in R&D as well. The fourth risk, I think, is significantly major. That is the carbon and policy risk. Ladies and gentlemen, we talked about how governments are changing, how governments are bringing in legislation. For example, recently in California, in the United States, they banned plastic. In emerging markets as well, similar sentiment can be seen. When we talk about 1st July, we banned all single-use plastic, and FMCG companies were ill-prepared for the same. So if emissions cap is coming, we know that it is coming, we'll need to actually make some changes. And when we talk about these changes, acquisition of renewable energy firms is relatively very important for us. Ladies and gentlemen, also, let's talk about the reputational risk. The company has struggled with this, as we know, when we talk about CEO's remuneration. So it must ensure that this doesn't happen again. And that can only be done by following the best of ESG practices. Now, moving on, we'll talk about some other risks. As you can see, we identified a number of risks, and then we have actually tabulated and charted them on the basis of the likelihood and magnitude of consequences. Those were the major risks. Now we'll talk about others. The company is a conglomerate, right? And they have been making acquisitions as well. So one risk which we feel is slightly under control is integration risk of these mergers, right? Obsolescence risk. And this again ties into the R&D developments that we need to make. The technology of the future will be green. And that is why we must keep spending on R&D, be it green or non-green. We have to increase efficiency. We need to solve for business risk. We need to face competition. Supply chain risk, we talked about that. And then there's the compliance and regulatory risk. Now, having a team that is dedicated to compliance and regulation would help. We have to ensure that this goes on in the future as well. There are some other minor risks as well. One is cybersecurity risk. Now, the company does not face a lot of, the company is a manufacturing company, but still it employs IT. So to correct that, what can we do? We can employ microservices. Now,
2 minutes more. 2 minutes.
Right, I'll just conclude it. So what we have done in this presentation is provided you with all the risks, and there are significant KPIs to measure as well, which was in the executive summary. Now we are open for questions. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. That's the presentation is done.
Yeah, our presentation's done. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Nonsense Consulting Group from University of Delhi, India, for the presentation. It's a great work. Okay, now I would like to turn to the judges for the discussion or question and answer session. The discussion session is approximately 15 minutes. So we would like to welcome the judges, please. Maybe from Miss Cortney.
Sure. Hi. Very nice work. I really enjoyed both your presentation and your proposition. I do see Laura has her hand up. I don't know if she wants to.
That's okay. I'll wait for you. I'll wait after you. That's fine.
So of course, one thing that stood out to me was your discussion of the risks and controlling for those risks. And one thing that stood out was when you were talking about, I know this is getting away from ESG a little bit, but I was interested in this one. Yes, on like higher focus on, spending more to increase retention rate of employees. One thing that we are seeing in the US as a result of COVID is this greater desire for like flexibility for workers, or flexible work schedules, remote work schedules. But obviously this is a big challenge in manufacturing because people have to be there. So how would you think about, from a manufacturing perspective, some like controls or solutions to implement maybe more flexibility in the workforce, maybe not just some of those non-monetary incentives and things that companies could do to help mitigate some of those risks?
Right, I'll take this up, and Pulkit and Siddharth can add on to this. So basically, while we were researching, we realized that there have been a lot of companies who are actually incorporating gig workers back into the formal economy. Now, if we look at, Siddharth, could you please present your screen again and move to the appendix, the 14th slide? And this is a very important part, that we must incorporate gig workers. So if you look at the diagram on the right, this is that the older population is aging, but younger population, 40, younger than 45, they are actually wanting that flexibility, as ma'am said. And gig working is something that has really appealed to them. So getting in contact with these platforms will be, I think, the way to go.
Right, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Cortney. Okay, maybe the next is Ms. Flora. So please.
Hey everyone, it was a great presentation, guys. Good work. So, quick question for you. Do you think there's an instance where excessive implementation of ESG can affect competitiveness, particularly for this company? And, or if you want to answer overall for another multinational, what will be your answer?
Right. So I think there is, of course, a certain point where too much focus on ESG and sustainability will eat into your profits, because implementing sustainability norms is, as of today, a bit costly. But what we think, because if you have more sustainability checks, if you use sustainable raw material, they are more pricier than your traditional raw materials. Or if you look at even sustainable investments, green bonds, for example, if you look at them, they typically offer a lower return than your traditional securities. But the fact is that the double bottom line that exists at the end of the day, which measures your social as well as your financial return, that is then accentuated. So there is a certain point where the financials do get a little anti-competitive at one point, but we think that in the longer term, what we're seeing is that there's an increasing focus on companies being socially responsible, companies which pollute, companies which do not respect ESG norms. They're immediately tackled on social media. Their products are boycotted. This is especially true for consumer-facing companies. So we think at that point, even if it harms competitiveness to some extent, we think it's okay to sacrifice that, because we think in the longer term, it results in a much better competitive positioning, much better customer loyalty and retention for these companies.
Just to add on to what Siddharth said, so I think he completely perfectly wrapped it up. I'll just add one line, that there needs to be some sort of balance, because here we are looking at sustainability, which is a long-term vision, but we must also keep in mind the short-term priorities as well. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Laura. Okay, maybe the next is from Mr. Fred.
All right, I just have a very quick question for you. Can you, one of you, explain me how implementing the ESGs can lead to efficiency gain in the practice, in the industry or in the firm?
Right, I'll start with one point, and I think probably Siddharth and Pulkit can then come up with more. One thing I think was evident in the case itself was that the CEO of Walden, the executive of Walden, he was taking an exorbitant amount of salary. Now this sacrifices equity to some extent, and it may happen that the frontline workers, they may feel demoralized, right? And when you have a demoralized workforce and there can be more protests, their work productivity can decrease. And this is one way by which we can see that efficiency has been affected because your governmental policies weren't followed to the letter.
Right. So one more way is like we've already mentioned, right? So the main one major place where ESG can provide intervention or can help us is by cost reduction, right? And one possible way of doing that is by reduced regulatory and legal intervention. So in the if in the future, if in the longer term, if we don't have a lot of legal intervention, don't have a lot of fines, don't have a lot of cases and contingencies, then automatically we have lesser risks to deal with and lesser possible financial problems in the future, thus ensuring that overall operations remain efficient and the costs remain down.
Adding one more point, for example, there is this rush for financing. Everyone needs financing. So there's a cost associated with raising finances as well. So when you are a company which is reporting these standards, you are more likely to attract the finances towards you as well. So that cost is also reduced to some extent.
Just one point I'd like to add to that. So if we look at the case that we got in the semifinals, it was about a financial inclusion bank, Bandhan Bank, and they were able to get regulatory approvals from the Central Bank of India just because of their financial inclusion performance metrics. So if the company is looking to expand into new areas, it needs licenses, government approvals. We think at that point, ESG then also comes into play because they have a good standing with the government and with the public.
Okay, so how's about the answer, Mr. Fred?
Yep, good.
Okay, I've got one. You guys ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing also that's perhaps the biggest issue now is global inflation. So how would you balance, let's say, conflicting customer views of the importance of ESG in an era where inflation is rampant, probably will continue, wages, I'll say, are stagnant, when people are struggling to just put gas in their car and put food on their table, blah, blah, blah. Do you think the importance of ESG is going to matter a lot to those people or not? And how would you balance that now as a business?
Right, sir. So we are talking, I'll just want one clarification for the question. Are we talking about customers, or we are to compare all the stakeholders that are involved? For example, if we are an emerging country, we are in the same problem as probably a consumer making this purchasing decision, whether to opt for sustainability or not. Should we answer on both fronts?
Well, what I'm saying is, really, in some ways, both. I mean,
right.
if you're an investor and your investment, look at the stock market now, it's gone down 20%. So in this era of investments going down and inflation going up, do you think that some people might say that maybe ESG should take a 5-year break until we get to? I mean, what if you're given that question and you're the CEO of either of those companies? How would you answer?
Right.
Like,
so
just give it a break for a few years.
Right, sir. So I'll start with investors. Now, if we look at the emerging technology that is showing the best CAGR, it's green technology. So investors, they want to invest in ESG because they expect it's the future. Despite there being inflation, governments are clamping down on emissions. Case in point is I think California recently introduced a ban on plastics. India itself, the country we are from, it imposed a nationwide ban on single-use plastic. So it comes from the government itself that they aren't actually relaxing at this point of time. They realize that this is a priority as well. And second, for companies, why it is essential to keep investing, it's because in the future, this will give them a competitive edge. Right now, they'll have to balance with the problem at hand, but in the future, will be a significant competitive edge.
If I could just add on to that, when we talk about ESG, especially in an inflationary environment, there might be cost pressures on the company, which might motivate them to encourage layoffs or cut wages for workers. We think that when these sort of activities happen, sure, you're able to preserve your financial statements in the short term. But we think if there's not an imminent risk of bankruptcy for the firm, it's okay to absorb these measures in the short term in a high inflationary environment. Why? Because I think COVID shows us a good history of companies who kept their employees on payroll during COVID, even if those employees weren't working. If you look at companies like Havells and Reliance in India, they kept their employees on the payroll, even though they weren't coming to the factories, because the people needed a source of income and livelihood. So, and those companies benefited immensely. Havells stock went up 60% after COVID's regulations relaxed. Reliance was up almost 100%. So what we see are companies which are responsible or also benefiting in the long term, even if they sacrifice short-term profitability.
Yeah, just one small point to add here. Basically, since we all know that in COVID, the productivity of employees also went down by a lot, right? And by keeping the wages intact, by providing them more incentives, by providing, let's say, by making sure that, you know, if a person dies in your family, will take care of you or something of that sort, then it sort of motivates that person and employee to work for the organization and improve the productivity, and thus in the long run helping the company.
Sir, one point I'll just add on to this. Like, we faced the great customer employees churn, right? Everyone wanted to leave, but if what Pulkit had proposed was followed, that company won't be in this position. Those employers will have that loyalty. They'll still be working on that level of productivity. So over term, there are a plethora of advantages. Is what we...
Okay, so is there any additional question, Mr.
Yeah,
Fred?
sure. Yeah, I have one question. Thank you, team, for a good presentation. And I just wanted to ask you, for manufacturing companies such as this one, such as Emerson, what do you think, how do you think we can, do you first of all think that we should hold them, you know, like we should set a high level of expectation from such companies that, you know, maybe have high gas emissions? And the reason why I'm saying this, it seems like at the beginning, this company was relaxed, you know, to put up like an ESG, you know, framework within their organization. So what could governments or what should be done to hold such companies more accountable, depending on the type of business model that they have?
Right. So I'll just start. Basically, these huge companies, I think you mentioned Amazon, but any other huge manufacturing company which exists, or any other huge conglomerate which exists, and we know that the company is responsible for a lot of greenhouse gas emissions and carbon emissions, then we need to definitely hold them accountable for that. And let's see what's been happening in the past few years, right? The governments have been strict with firms of, let's say, the FANG group, even though they're not manufacturing companies, but they have been very strict with regards to carbon emissions, or let's say better wages, or all things of that matter. And I think holding them accountable helps, because they are the companies which have sort of a monopolistic control over the entire market, and they are the ones who have the power and money to actually bring out change apart from the governments.
One more thing I would like to add here. I think it's very important we start creating these reporting standards. I think they should be made, we should work upon them. For example, when we talk about CLA analysis, it isn't uniform for many products. So when we have these uniform standards and we know that what emission a company is producing, they are penalized by everyone. They'll be penalized by the investors. They'll be penalized by the employers. So a proper measuring facilitates all of this. So that is what I'd like to say.
Lastly, I think one thing that I would like to add is that shareholder resolutions, as it was mentioned in the case, so it was said that even if it's 100% of votes towards shareholder resolutions, the company is still not legally bound to actually implement what the shareholders are asking of it, which I think is a big mismatch between what the owners of the company want and what the management is actually enacting. I think some sort of enforcement mechanism could probably be put into place where if shareholder resolutions are above a particular percentage, say 50%, 60%, 75%, at that point, if there's some mandate that comes in for the company to comply with the resolution, we think it makes businesses much more responsible.
Okay. Is it good, Miss Choolwe? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, honorable judges and delegates, ladies and gentlemen, however, due to the limited time, we need to end our discussion session with the group 1. Okay, and we are moving to the next group. Okay, thank you, Nonsense Consulting Group from University of Delhi, India. Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. We really love presenting the solution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, shall we continue? We are now going to listen to the second group presentation. But before the presentation begins, let me tell you how this discussion will run. The presentation is approximately for about 15 minutes. And following that, we will have a question and answer session with the judges for approximately 15 minutes. So please welcome Ceria Group from University of Surabaya, Indonesia.
Sorry, Miss, can we start now?
Yes, please. 15 minutes from now.
Okay, thank you for the opportunities. First of all, I would like to have a quote from Gary Cohn, a vice chairman of IBM, that he stated, "If you don't invest in risk management, it doesn't matter what business you're in, it's a risky business." From this statement, we can be concluded that risk play a vital role in a company. So how is the implementation of the risk management in Emerson Electric regarding the ESG? First of all, thank you for the opportunity that has given to us. Good afternoon, honorable judges. Today, we are from Ceria team, consisting of myself, Clarissa, and my teammates, Ricky and Angela. We'll bring up a presentation about risk management on Emerson Electric. Emerson Electric is a U.S. manufacturers company that provides automatic solution and commercial and residential solution segment that face several ESG issues. In 2013, Political Economy Research Institute has ranked Emerson 59th on its Toxic 100 list of the world's largest oil porters and faced the investor concern about socially responsible investing. To overcome this problem, shareholder has requested Emerson Electric to issue sustainability report that describe company's ESG performance that include greenhouse gases reduction targets and goals, and also reduce the waste and energy used from its manufacturing process. However, Emerson was worried that the information disclosed on the sustainable report could provide competitive information. Other factors that affect Emerson's strategy on the sustainability reporting are the listing rules on securities exchange, debate among frontline and mid-level employees, questions posed by prospective job candidates, and receive unfavorable press coverage about executive pays. These factors have led to various ESG risks that will affect the company sustainability on the long term. Emerson has faced environmental risks due to the level of 59th, world's largest air polluter, social risks due to inequality and ethical issues, and also the governance risks due to the lack of effective internal control due to the significant increase of executive pay in 2012. Huron Irwin in 2019 stated that the company who consider ESG risk an opportunity also benefit from better access to financing, improved customer satisfaction and loyalty, and better employee relations. It is because that the ESG risk has become regular businesses and should be maintained as a part of the company risk. So, to drive sustainability, companies need to define what sustainability means to their business based on the stakeholders' expectation and communicating this ESG performance to the stakeholders regularly.
Moving on to the second case, we use the terminology of ISO 31000-2028 to analyze the risk faced by immersion electric. We divide our analysis of scope and context into two, which are internal and external factors. External factors faced by immersion are governance law and regulation, public reputation, technology advancement, including IT developments, and macroeconomic factors. Meanwhile, the internal context that affects immersion are financial conditions, such as limited funds to develop energy system and facility, income, and investment-related business continuity, including long-term strategic planning, and company sustainability and asset condition. We construct our criteria by arranging severity and risk likelihood into 5 categories, namely virtually certain, likely, possible, unlikely, and rare. And for likelihood, we categorize into minor, moderate, major, severe, and catastrophic. Moving on to our risk identification, we categorize our risk into 6 categories, namely business and operational risk, strategic risk, reputation risk, environmental risk, financial risk, and legal risk. For further detail, we categorize it more into 18 specific risks that could be faced by immersion. Among those 18 risks, our top 3 risks with the highest score are critical asset conditions.
Okay, sorry. Sharia team, the voice is unheard. Can you please a little closer to the microphone?
Is this one okay?
The voice is not clearly heard. Okay. Please.
Can you hear my voice now?
Can you raise your voice volume? Okay, maybe the other member.
Can you hear me better now?
Or maybe you can use no microphone.
Can you hear me better now?
It is better than before. Okay, please continue. Yes, please. Or maybe the other member could take over.
Okay, maybe I will take over from my friend.
Yes.
As my voice is audible.
Yes, we can hear your voice clearly.
Okay, thank you for the response. So among those 18 risks, our top 3 risks with the highest scores are the critical asset condition, public perception, ethical issues with same score categorized as severe risks. We found out that 2 out of the 3 top risks can be navigated using ESG, which are public perceptions and ethical issues. Public perceptions represents the company and the governance. Meanwhile, the public reputation and ethical issues are inextricably linked with actions and values on environmental, social, and governance issues, which are increasingly important to customers, investors, and regulators. This slide shows our risk metrics, and we found out that there are 9 severe risks, 8 major risks, and 1 moderate risk. That could be navigated by our risk statement that mostly dominated by mitigating the risks.
The next one, we're going to explain the risk appetite and risk tolerance of this company. From the risk appetite key points, which are reluctant to publish information about this ESG practice to avoid disclosing competitive information to competitor, considering to sell its power transmission solution business and buy only a safe share that will lead to lower return. It can be concluded that Amazon are a risk averse. However, this company could still tolerate the difficult economic condition and uneven demand for its products and the need of sustainability reporting.
Now, let's talk about the best practice of risk management. From the best practice point of view, it can be concluded that the risk management is still not done effectively. There are three reasons behind the opinion. The first and the second one is Emerson was found guilty in stealing data center design from Playroom, and Emerson was charged with various of lawsuit offenses. This case shows that Emerson didn't implement the risk management properly and caused some loss to the company. It was estimated that due to this sloppiness, Emerson had to face 21 lawsuit cases and lost around $974,000. And the third one is Emerson was rated as medium ESG risk at 29.5. The ESG rating score shows that the company hasn't established an enough concern regarding the environmental, social, and governance. Therefore, it is recommended for the firm to establish a proper internal control, especially on mitigating its risks. For example, the company can set a result control by establishing KPI that regulate the legal issues. And then now let's talk about the disruption risk. There are three main disruptions that will be faced by Emerson as a company who operates in electrical equipment industry. Those disruptions are the rise of the usage of more sophisticated automation due to the revolution industry 4.0. Next, the demand for sustainability as people become more concerned regarding the social environment, and vulnerability, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, or VUCA. From the analyzed risk, it can be concluded that there are three risks for each disruptions. Due to the time limitation, we will explain further regarding the top risk in each disruption. Furthermore, in order to support the going concern of the company, Emerson is advised to do some risk mitigation for those risks. Now, the top risk related to the more sophisticated automation is the stolen intellectual property via cybercrime. Emerson operates in highly technological and competitive industry, which means a little out of date of technology's usage can bring a lot of damage to the company. Thus, Emerson is forced to keep being innovative. Meanwhile, due to the rise of digitalization, the risk of data stealing intellectual property, such as Emerson's innovation, is rising. Lazik in 2021 mentioned that cybercrime being committed on an average of 2,244 times per day. And then the top risk related to the rise of the demand in the sustainability is the emerging usage of sustainability reporting. UNCTAD once mentioned that the sustainability development goals that want to be achieved in 2020. Therefore, many companies are urged to report how they help to meet the SDGs. Therefore, there is an urgency for the company to disclose its sustainability action to the stakeholders using sustainability report. Besides that, the sustainability report itself can be used as a signaling instrument regarding the company's vision and meet the unwritten social contract with the stakeholders regarding the sustainability. And then the third risk is the VUCA, which is the top risk is the economic recession. The Economist predicts that there will be US recession due to the contractive monetary policy with many other VUCAs outside US. Emerson, as a US-based company, should prepare to save the company in the recession. After we know about the top risk, Emerson is advised to have proper mitigation plans. Therefore, the whole mitigation plan that can be seen on the slide. Related to the top risk that I have explained earlier, there are some risk mitigation that's recommended to be done. That is to start making sustainability report by using GRI as its standard. This standard is one of the most used standard in the world. And then the second risk mitigation plan is to use more sophisticated protection system such as firewall and software. Besides that, Emerson also registered its patent as soon as possible as the company has found a new innovation. And then for the economic recession, we have to admit that it is an unavoidable risk for the company. Although we still have recommendation for the company. That is to save more cash by avoiding risky investment in the recession. And then after the recession has ended, the company is recommended to start investing in more sophisticated technology, either by resourcing or in-house development.
4 minutes more.
Lastly, let me conclude our presentation that the top three risks that Emerson must face are critical asset condition, public perception, and ethical issue. But among those three, the public perception and ethical issues are able to be solved by using ESG approach. Meanwhile, in the near future, Emerson has to face three different disruptions. Those are the more sophisticated automation, demand for sustainability, and the VUCA. And to solve the issue from the disruption, Emerson is recommended to have a proper sustainability reporting, as this report can be used as a tool to communicate about company's vision to the stakeholders. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ceria Group from University of Surabaya, Indonesia, for the presentation. Nice work. Now, I would like to turn to the judges for the discussion or question and answer session. The discussion session is approximately 15 minutes. So, the judges, please. Mr. Jeffrey, maybe?
Okay, I have a question, you outlined a risk of, I think, internet issues, security. What exactly do you have in mind for a company like Emerson? It's heavily based in manufacturing. What type of threats do you think they face in that regard? And how could they mitigate it?
Okay. Please, Sharia team.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Jeffrey. So related to the internet issue security, I think, yeah, it's quite common that we can say that it is impossible for a manufacturing company will face an internet issue security. But in fact, in 2018, there is an issue from the Emerson related to the security system, which is the Emerson was caught and found guilty as the company was stealing the data center design from other company, that is Playroom. This issue was happened in 2018, and I think it's a big opportunity for the hackers to do so for the Emerson. As we know, Emerson is a company that operates in highly competitive and highly technological company, which means, as I have explained earlier, that a little bit of out of the technologies will damage the company by a lot. Therefore, the company was forced to have continuously innovation. And this innovation is not cheap, as we know. And then if the company doesn't keep this innovation properly, it can be stolen by other people. Therefore, if the question is about the internet issue security, I think the most important thing to do by the Emerson is to keep the innovation secret or innovation patent as secure as possible. As we said earlier, we can use the proper firewall, the software, or we can use the legal power by registering the patent to the US government as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jeffrey. And the next question from the judges.
Okay, I will ask my question. You said that they did not manage the risk properly. So can you give me a clear example of proper risk management? This is my first question. And the second one, I think you talk about reducing the number of labor employed. So are that telling me that they should fire some employees, or what do you have in mind?
Okay, so who's the one from Sharia team who will answer the question from Mr. Fred?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fred, for the question. I would like to answer your first question about the proper risk management. We think the proper risk management is by using the terminology of ISO 31000 of 2018 to analyze the risk faced by the company, which concluded by 3 steps from scope and context, and also concluding several internal and external contacts related to the company, and then to identify certain risks by using several categories. By using it, we can see that how many risks are severe and how many risks are catastrophic. So we can see is the company is really threatened by those risks or not. So we can conclude it, the company's position in risk management by using this terminology.
Sorry, Mr. Fred, can you please repeat the second question? I think we have some internet connection issue.
I think one of the slides you mentioned that they should reduce the number of labor employed. I think it's probably, yeah, let me see. Yeah, here you have in the second row, the third row, reduce the number of labor employed. How do they do that?
Oh, okay. So let me clarify about the purpose from the reduce the number of labor employed. Our purpose by adding this row is this is one of the disruption risks, especially from the more sophisticated automation. So as we know, there is a trade-off between the labor and the capital. As if we use more capital, then we have to reduce the labor with the assumption of the capital of the company is held constant. Therefore, with the rise of the automation, with the rise of Internet of Things, blockchain, and artificial intelligence, therefore the number of labor that will be required in a company will be reduced. And I think we think it's a quite big risk that should be faced by Emerson, since Emerson has one of the biggest revenue stream from the business solution, especially in making automation for the company. So maybe the labor will use Emerson as the black coat when they are being fired because of the usage of automation.
Okay, any other comment or question, Mr. Fred?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fred. Okay, maybe from the other judges.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for your presentation. How would you describe Emerson's risk appetite and how did that affect their profitability?
Okay, so thank you, Ms. for the question. Yeah, so for the risk appetite, as shown in the slide, the first one is about the principle of Emerson, that the Emerson refused to disclose sustainability information at the sustainability report because the Emerson afraid that this information contain a competitive information that could be used by the other company to gain more competitive advantage. And also, of course, if the other company gain more competitive advantage, get the more effective, efficient, and also has a better ESG solve issue, the other company could gain the more advantage, which this means that most of the customers will have a better brand image about the other company compared to the Emerson. So for the first one, for about the competition, disclosure information that affect the competition, it will affect the Emerson's profit directly. And then the second one is about the considering the power transmission, and the third one is about the buy shares of the portfolio, which means that here, if the company want to have a lower risk here, so that like what we always know that lower risk at a lower return. So here, the company or the Emerson company will also face a lower return, which will lead to lower profit.
Maybe I will add more answer from my question. So from the risk appetite that has been explained by my friend earlier, then we can see that Emerson is actually a risk-averse company. That can be seen that the principal reason why Emerson don't want to use the sustainability reporting is because they fear of disclosing information to the other competitors. And then on the third appetite, it is mentioned that Emerson only going to buy the share that are profitable, is good and viable for the long-term investment. So we can conclude that the company is actually a risk-averse company. And then how the risk appetite can affect the profitability, then we can see from the risk tolerance. The first risk tolerance is Emerson was still facing difficult economic conditions and uneven demand for its product. Therefore, we can see that because of due to the risk aversion of the company, then the profitability of the company will reduce. And then beside that, because of the company was reluctant and don't want to disclose any sustainability information for the stakeholders, then the reputation of the company was decreased. The company was having a bad reputation, and therefore it will affect their profitabilities. Their profitabilities. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Haankuku, any other comment?
Thank you.
Okay, good. We still have more time. We still have 5 minutes more. Is there any comment or a question from the other judges?
I have a question. Again, thank you for your presentation. And you had mentioned at the end that one of the top risks was that of public perception. And so my question is just kind of from a a customer consumer perspective, how do you think, as a manufacturer, the products that Emerson kind of specializes in, being like HVAC equipment, garbage disposals, hand tools, closet organization systems, how do you think the products that a company produces affect their risk from a public perception standpoint? Because it seems like, consumers will vote with their money a lot when it comes to like food or the vehicles that they drive. But I don't know that if I'm going to purchase a garbage disposal, I'm really thinking about like the manufacturer's ESG principles. So can you kind of describe how maybe sometimes the risk of public perception may depend on the types of products that a manufacturer produces and how customers think about those products?
Okay, thank you for the question. So maybe I'll try. I'll try to answer the question first. So yes, indeed, maybe from the common perspective that the product that is produced by the Emerson is quite common and doesn't require a good public perceptions to buy the product. But as it mentioned in the case, General Electric, as one of the main competitor of Emerson, has started its first step in sustainability from 2005, and which it was a huge success for the company. So if we compare these competitors using competitive profile metrics, so we can see that Emerson was left behind from the other competitors, since the other competitors has established a good sustainability reputation in the eyes of the customers. Meanwhile, on the other hand, the customer itself is having a more preference to more sustainable product, as we see that people, especially in developed country, tend to buy more sustainable product instead of the more unsustainable product. So I think, although maybe it sounds like it's a minor products that we use every day, but I think the product reputation or the brand reputation has played a big role for the Emerson.
I'd like to add to my friend's answer. A company's reputation, we think a company's reputation is a public perception of the company and also how it's operates. This includes the public's opinion, including the customers, on the company's product or services, and how they also treat like its employee and how they do in media. So, for example, like one of my friends previously explained that Emerson had a legal case, which lose their brand image, and we think it managed it. We think it made the customers' perspective for them can be different, and they lose a lot of their brand image. So
Okay, Dr. Cowley, is there any comment or question for this team?
No, thank you.
Okay, all right. Yes, due to the limit of time, we have to move into the next group. Thank you, Sharia group, for the presentation and the discussion.
Thank you, Miss. Thank you, sir.
Yes. Okay. We've just watched the presentation and discussion from Sharia group from University of Surabaya, Indonesia. So we are moving to the next group. The next group is most outstanding group from Institut Teknologi Bandung, Indonesia. Okay, the presentation is approximately for about 15 minutes. And following that, we will have a question and answer session with the judges for approximately 15 minutes. So please welcome most outstanding group from Institut Teknologi Bandung, Indonesia.
All right, so allow me to share my screen. I believe it's already visible.
Yes.
Okay. So our team will start in 3, 2, 1. Good afternoon, honorable judges and audiences. We are the most outstanding team from Institut Teknologi Bandung. Risk management has become the key to maintaining a corporation growth and adaptation toward ESG issues. Therefore, today, we will present the risk assessment of Emerson Electric, leading it to sustainability corridor. Next. So let us begin with why integrating ESG into Emerson's strategy is relevant with its risk management. ESG allows companies to do early intervention action around the ESG factor and sees the opportunity ahead, which is making a positive influence toward the society. It is also essential because of emerging key drivers from these 4 main areas, namely the global agenda, market, shareholders, and also regulator. The 4 of them bring about how the ESG issues has grown exponentially and therefore has to be taken into consideration by any company. However, in this case, we identified that Emerson neglected the shareholder request to report its sustainability effort due to its competitive disadvantage assumption. So the question is, how can Emerson showcase more of their sustainability effort to be recognized and trusted in its industry? Next. Our risk assessment method is based on the ISO 30000. For the scope, we focus on the company ESG reporting, divided into internal operation and sustainability reporting, and also the external ESG impact. The assessment is conducted to achieve Emerson's sustainability effort reporting objectives to grow competitive advantage and is conducted through identifying the competitive disadvantages in terms of reporting decision-making, analyzing the historical performance, and evaluating the impact of their operation towards the stakeholders. And we also identified that communication and consultation within this case efforts were made by Walden in forms of constant persuasion to the decision maker in Emerson. However, the resistance from Emerson is still big. There is not quite monitoring and review information, but there is significant internal control based on their annual statements. And lastly, Emerson finally records and reports its sustainable investing activities after agreeing to take concern of its reputation advocating sustainability for the long term. Next.
Additionally, Emerson Electric also displays uses of risk appetite and tolerance concept. According to ISO 31000, risk appetite is the prescribed amount and type of risk prepared to be pursued or retained. This is shown from the case as the company decided not to provide comprehensive sustainability reporting because of 2 reasons. The first one is that even if the shareholders persuade them to do so, the SEC deems the persuasion as only in an advisory capacity. The second one is related to the risk tolerance, or the limit level of risk the organization is willing to take. In this case, Emerson did not want to spill confidential information that could benefit their competitors, even though they were not asked by the shareholder to provide such information. Next.
Looking from their risk management perspectives, based on ISO 31000, we concluded that Emerson has above average risk management effectiveness. Based on these 8 factors, Emerson has especially done well in its comprehensive assessment, diversity, ethics, and safety. However, Emerson still lacks in shareholders' involvement that may reduce its potential on responding to growing market trends and needs.
As a provider of technology, engineering, and software solutions, Emerson Electric is affected by at least 3 main industrial indicators. First, the growing ESG awareness urges Emerson to operate more sustainably. Environmental aspects to be considered include energy efficiency and greenhouse gas emissions. Social aspects include equality and CSR programs, while governance consists of reporting obligation and stakeholders management. Secondly, renewable energy also becomes more popular in handling energy scarcity, with opportunities including deployment of new energy sources, for example, in hydropower, solar, and wind power, especially in the growing emerging markets. Lastly, digitalization, AI, and machine learning provide more opportunities as well for industrial automation. Next.
Our approach to Emerson risk assessment is based on the ESG standards, or the environmental, social, and governance. We've identified the key subfactors in each factor and prioritize it based on the likelihood and severity of each risk. We found 3 top risks: lack of toxic emissions handling, unsustainable or unmaintained CSR programs, and neglected shareholders' rights, each from every factor. Starting from the first one, dangerous chemicals such as chromium and nickel can cause dangerous health effects such as respiratory irritations or even death. Lack of supervision in CSR quality creates an ambiguity in Emerson values. And although having robust reporting mechanism for shareholders, Emerson can choose to neglect even the most evident resolutions. So here's the visualization of the top prioritized risk, created based on the likelihood severity of each risk. We can see that the top prioritized risks are placed on the upper right, which has the highest likelihood and severity.
Next up, we believe that our action plan has to have an objective to develop an effective shareholder engagement strategy by implementing ESG. Besides the growing nowadays issues and trends, namely COVID-19 pandemic, also growing awareness of corporate values, sustainability effort, and also digitalization, we chose to treat the most prioritized risk by creating sufficient ventilation and hazardous waste management, establishing and maintaining regular dialogues with shareholders, instilling corporate value to be a timeless legacy, and lastly, building employee sense of ownership. We believe that these key treatments are most impactful in supporting Emerson to emphasize their ESG investing. Next.
Elaborating the risk treatments previously mentioned, we propose some action plans alongside contingency solutions to tackle constraints that would appear from the plans. We also assessed the impact of those constraints to 5 groups of stakeholders and found out that 2 most impactful constraints are board members' reluctance to facilitate shareholders' needs and the lack of interest to internalize corporate value. Additionally, shareholder is the group most impacted because of ESG awareness in investing, followed by the local community, which depends on the implementation of all 3 ESG aspects. Next.
Lastly, Emerson needs to follow this high-level implementation plan in order to follow up to their risk treatments. High-level consent is undeniably important for a company to create new initiatives, which is why the implementation plan is divided into 3 phases. First phase is insights generation and planning. Second phase is alignment and execution. And third phase is monitoring and evaluation. In the first phase, Emerson must maintain communication with board members and perform feasibility study on the related initiatives. In the second phase, Emerson should create refined strategies to tackle the problems based on the insight received and continue to implement the contingency plans. In the third phase, Emerson should continuously monitor, evaluate, and improve contingency plans based on the growing market trends and shareholders' needs. There's all from our team. We would like to have the Q&A session right now. Thank you.
Well, okay, thank you. The most outstanding group for the presentation. Now, I would like to turn to the judges for the discussion. The discussion session is approximately 15 minutes. So the judges, please.
Well, I've got one. I may as well start.
Please, Dr. Vital.
Okay, thank you. Guys did a good job. Appreciate it. Okay, here's a question. How might, say, the implementation of AI, digitization, and automation, how might there be, I'm kind of giving you part of the answer right away, but how might there be a social risk associated with that? And if so, how would you manage that? Can you think of how that might lead to a social problem, social issue?
Right. Thank you, Mr. Jeffrey, for the question. I'd like to answer. So your question is about regarding the AI implementation and our solutions and how it could affect actually the S part or the social part in our ESG. So in the social part, we see that it fundamentally lies on 2 things, which is workforce and the people that use our services or our customers. So when we say we want to implement the AI, we want to boost effectiveness, efficiency, and operations inside the business and outside for the customers. But we can also see that there are also risks. So first one, in the worker side, it's very undeniable for me to know that AI and automation would definitely create less workforce manually. So there would be an effect in the human resources side, deficit, and there's a surplus in the technology side where we need more engineers to solve the AI problems. And the second one is from the outside problems in the consumer side. We can see that the social consumers can probably not accept it right away, especially in developing countries. And it is because they're not very used to the technological side of the businesses, and they need trainings and they need time so that the solutions can be implemented in the long term, but it still consists of risks in the short terms. I guess that's our answer.
Right, but I guess, how would you manage that from the perspective of, if ESG is supposed to be for the betterment of society in general, and then when your focus is on, like I think you said, reducing labor force, then aren't you in effect, like you can see this throughout Europe and the US, where communities get decimated when there's automation and the shift of, workforce from one region to another, one country to another. There's just, the social fabric is gone. So I mean, how would you manage that? I mean, if you displace thousands of workers, how is that having a positive impact on the S part of ESG? I mean, it's going to improve the E part or your profit, maybe. Well, anyways, do you have anything to say about that?
Right. So thank you for the follow-up question, Mr. So it's very true that the workforce labor that I said before would potentially decrease, and it's caused by the automation and the reduce of labor. And how we are going to manage it is there are several ideas. So first one, we cannot jump in straight to the solution right away and just decimate all the workforce, because it would create worldwide protests to our company, because we can see if we are a very global company, and if we choose to implement right away to every company and every customers, it will sure create some volatility. So what we're going to do is we're going to start from the businesses that actually needs the automation, that doesn't really have the resources, but they need the automation, not because we want to replace them, but we want to actually optimize their current ones. So we don't want to start by replacing the workforce, but we want to start by giving opportunities for these growing companies to actually grow faster without actually replacing any workers. And that's the ESG part of it. And if you want to deep dive again in the larger companies, and let's say I want to decimate all the workers, if I may say, because of our technologies, we can just try to first give a notice on how we would try to give them awareness on what technology we're trying to implement, and the opportunities for them who are currently working in the technology to shift their careers in somewhat other places. Because we know that the labor industry is very wide, but when we want to shift from one industry to another, there's actually not much barrier in there. So what we're going to do is go slowly from there, and eventually when they have reached their capacity to work in other industries, we're going to move forward. I guess that's how we're going to approach it.
Okay, and then to add the answer, we would apply the automation first for workers that do not have a sufficient opportunity for working from home, particularly manufacturer or supply chain workers, even if this is during the COVID-19 pandemic. From our data, we also conclude that more than half of workers in Emerson also didn't have this opportunity, and this could affect the mental health. So for the first phase, we would apply automation for these affected groups. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Vital. Okay, so the next from...
Okay, I have a question. Sorry.
Yeah. Dr. Robles or Dr. Haankuku?
All right, I'll go first. Thank you so much for your presentation. I just wanted to ask, how do you think that Emerson should develop a global approach to ESG? And the reason why I'm saying this is because, I mean, they have footprint, on several continents, and as long as, I mean, there are in different footprints, we find that the political environment, the business environment, the cultures, in these different, continents differ. So how can they take a global approach to ESG that is inclusive? How could they do that?
All right. So it's very interesting questions because first of all, we're a global company, and of course we want to widen our reach to global. And sometimes the barrier is, do people actually want to get that value from us, even though we think it's very valuable? Do they actually need it or not? So I think that's the one thing that we need to validate in terms of what we're going to do to strategize in terms of going to the global. So what I'm trying to say is, let's say we're trying to expand, let's say first in China because we have operational units there, but we are using strategy in the US, so it's not going to be effective. So what we're trying to propose here is, first we have to do an in-depth research in their areas, and actually what do they need in our services. I mentioned before about the automation, but necessarily we have other business services like engineering, technology, and software. And you can see that in developing countries, there are big demand for that, and people are starting to recognize technology. So I think what we can do to re-strategize our goal to the global market is, first, bring out our values in technology, but the values needs to be aligned to the countries that we're facing. And second, we need to have a local team, because if you don't, somehow our values are still considered as a bit Western, and people won't actually go to that technology right away. And third thing is the way to retain or maintain the connection with the people is we have to actually continuously improve our products based on the regions that we tap in. Let's say we go in China, they need A, so we have to produce products that fit their needs. So it's basically revolves around different needs of people around the globe.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Haankuku. Okay, so the next, Dr. Robles, please.
Hello, guys. Thank you for the presentation. It was really nice. Quick question. How would you suggest, or how do you think a company has to bet their performance on ESG? Like, do they have to do it themselves? Like, let's say they implement everything you say, all the recommendations that you say, and they tell you, yes, we're doing this in the time frame that you wanted. Afterwards, what happens? Who evaluates that? The results from that, if they did it correctly, if it worked? Because one thing is what we think is going to happen, and then things change, right? So who should do it? Should they do it internally, hire someone else? How often should they do it?
Okay, thank you for the question. I will be answering this one. So, as we all know that implementing ESG in a company is not easy at all. It will need such a high cost, and it will need a big involvement from both internal and external stakeholders of the company. So we actually we think that in order for a company to be successful in implementing its ESG, they have to first instill their own mission and corporate value of how they will pursue ESG within their internal stakeholders first. Because the more power they have in their internal stakeholders and employees, the more impacts will generate it to the external stakeholders and also society in general. Maybe my other team would add.
Just to add a little bit on that, so our team also proposed a solution where we created an internal committee in which we are focusing on navigating and researching what the growing needs of the markets are. So that's the first thing we're going to do. That's just what Pat just said. We're going to create an internal committee on assessing and navigating the needs of external stakeholders. And second one, we also mentioned something on our risk treatment about the increasing the shareholders' engagement, because we see on the case that Emerson is a very global company, has a lot of shareholders, but sometimes when things come up, when industry trends come up or disruptors came up, they don't quickly shift their momentum to where it's supposed to go, and sometimes just keep going on the straight line. And this is what we're going to need to have help from others shareholders, in which we mean the ones that have shares in Emerson. They need to actually have platform where they can have an established dialogue with the internal side of the company. So there's two things, just to summarize. The first one is internal committee, and second one is establishing dialogue with shareholders in terms of facing the growing trends and disruptors from the external side.
Additionally, Emerson could also create partnership with partners and suppliers engaging in ESG as well. For example, for raw materials procurement and for specific missions, like for example, waste and hazardous waste management, they could outsource to licensed contractors. Additionally, they could also provide auditing service from external auditors, especially for their ESG reports. Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, there's a limit time. So this is the end of the discussion for group 3, most outstanding team from Institut Teknologi Bandung, Indonesia. Okay, thank you, the most outstanding team.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to listen to the last group presentation from CJ Square, National University of Singapore. The presentation is approximately for 15 minutes. Following that, we will have a question and answer session with the judges for approximately 15 minutes. So please welcome CJ Square from National University of Singapore.
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
My slides are showing, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'll start the presentation now. So hi, good afternoon everyone. I'm Jericho and my teammates are Clinton and Jiho, and we are Team CJ Square. We are representing the National University of Singapore and will be giving a presentation regarding the risk management of Emerson Electronics, or EE. So question 1 is about how ESG is implemented into EE's policies and strategies and how this is relevant to risk management. So ESG is implemented into EE's policies as their products are in line with ESG principles, especially in terms of the environmental factor of ESG. In fact, EE's products and services seek to support cleaner forms of energy production, enable efficient use of energy, and provide technologies that monitor and limit emissions. So how does this all relate to risk management? We believe that despite its current integration of ESG in its policies and strategies, EE's policies are lacking effective ESG and sustainable reporting. So by implementing better ESG reporting, they would better adhere to the risk management principle of being inclusive, as taking into account issues that the shareholders feel are relevant would make them more inclusive. Additionally, it's relevant to risk management as their risk process is also affected. In terms of scope and criteria, we feel that their primary objective is to improve the top and bottom line, which means that ESG issues and risks are not strongly considered by EE in its approach of RM unless it affects its main objective of maximizing profit and revenue. Furthermore, their risk evaluation is affected by its lack of ESG integration, as EE would most likely evaluate ESG risks as requiring little to no additional action. So this is evident in the case where they consistently refuse their shareholders' resolution for a sustainability report, as they felt that their time and resources were better spent elsewhere. Lastly, in terms of the implementation of ESG in their policies and how it affected their risk treatment, the fact that they were listed on the Toxic 100 shows the inadequacy of their risk management as they were unable to properly control and treat the reputational risk in terms of its ESG reputation.
So far, by implementing ESG, EE has tried to control business risk. As a publicly listed company, their core main objective is maximizing profit and revenue from business activities. And this is largely relying on uncertainties of stakeholders' investment, as they are in this manufacturing industry that require positive and high amount of cash flows in order for them to invest in R&D and purchasing machineries. They largely depend on the investment supported by other people. And we also identify the resource in the case, which is a trend in socially responsible investing from 1970s. So now people are looking for companies that embrace the value of ESG and practice ESG. Hence, there's a high likelihood for customers or investors or stakeholders who are socially or environmentally aware might decide to invest in other companies that practice better ESG if they deem the current company they're looking to invest or currently investing is not adequate. Also, even if the company says they're promoting and practicing ESG, if investors can lose trust in the company, if the company fails to disclose relevant information, there will again is a high likelihood that EE might lose the existing investments or future investment opportunities, which affect their business objectives. Hence, to control this business risk, what they have been doing so far is, as mentioned previously, by practicing their core business activities in providing energy efficient products, satisfying stakeholders' wants. And also by publishing sustainability reporting like 2013 Corporate Citizenship Report, they're interacting and engaging with stakeholders to build trust that they have been practicing ESG in the way they're looking for. Now I'll pass my time to Clinton.
Hi. So for question 3, it's asking about how risk appetite and risk tolerance is illustrated in EE. Amazon Electric, so our team evaluated that Amazon Electric has high risk appetite in achieving sales, competitiveness, and confidentiality in their industries, and high risk tolerance in their business operation. So to explain what is illustrated in the first column on the left, with reference to Satala risk management, risk appetite is how much a risk EE is willing to take, while risk tolerance is how much risk EE can take. After understanding this concept, our team has chosen this statement on the second column to illustrate the risk appetite concept. The statement basically mentions that the unwillingness of EE to publish information with the objective to remain competitive and confidential in their industry, even with the risk of warden asset management liquidating their assets. To go to such an extent to not disclose your information while exposing a risk of EE having a short-term cash flow problem is an implication of how high EE's risk appetite is in concealing their information. For risk tolerance, this statement was chosen. Long story short, Warden's resolution was for EE to be more GHG comprehensive, but EE did the opposite by building non-GHG plants. To illustrate the risk tolerance concept, without Warden's resolution, EE risk tolerance for business operation line would be at point A, which is the blue circle you can see in the third figure. However, with Warden's resolution, the risk tolerance points has been shifted from point A to point B, the red circle. It is good to note that EE would build the plants regardless of Warden's likelihood of liquidation, as point B remains within its predetermined risk tolerance within the orange circle. As long as the point illustrated is within the risk tolerance and not in EE's risk capacity, EE would proceed its business operation as usual, which was the case written in the statement. Now I pass my time back to Jiho.
So our team has analyzed the EE's current RM processes and concluded that EE is mildly practicing the RM processes or not effective enough. So in the case, we identify 3 processes, which is the risk assessment, risk treatment, and recording and reporting. For the case of risk assessment, even though in the ISO it is stated that it is important for company to iteratively identify the risk and evaluate the risk, for the case of EE, even though EE is in the manufacturing industry where there are generally high emission or waste produced, they did not identify the reputational risk caused for them like being listed in the Toxic 100. And even after they're listed in Toxic 100, ranked like 59th, they did not take further action, showing that the company, even if they also did not evaluate the risk properly. For the case of risk treatment, as we mentioned in question 2, that the company effectively treated the business risk by producing these more energy efficient products. We have best practice of GM, where they produce more environmental fuel efficient products, and at the same time with clear rationale for selecting risk treatment options, which is new and smarter ways. But for the case of EE, which is showcased by the fact that they're ranked high in the toxic 100, shows that there's still an area of improvement in terms of selecting risk treatment options when they try to control the business risk identified in question 2. And lastly, for the case of recording and reporting. So it is important, according to ISO document, that company to engage with stakeholders and provide relevant information in terms of their risk management process. However, for the case of EE, they refused to disclose their information to investors several times. And this is contrary to GM, who has strong web presence for sustainability efforts, meaning they're like actively trying to reach out to stakeholders, and at the same time had detailed and quantitatively sustainability reporting. So EE should be more willing to provide its stakeholders with information regarding its sustainability impacts and improve its engagement with stakeholders. Now I'll pass my time to Jericho.
Okay, so question 5 asks about a current disruption and a recommendation in terms of what risk treatment EE should take in regards to this disruption. So on this slide, we listed a few disruptions such as supply chain and digital disruptions, but we felt that the disruption most pertinent to EE is the MSCI and ESG investing disruption. So to provide context, investors are increasingly looking for ESG graded and aligned companies and often look at MSCI ratings to evaluate a company's ESG activities. However, EE currently does not possess an MSCI rating. This would pose a business risk in terms of EE's ability to retain investors and acquire financing. And we evaluated for EE to consider risk treatment options for this disruption, as they currently do not have effective existing controls against it, according to the case. So before we move on to the recommendation, here's an executive summary. So from question 2, we have previously identified that EE's objective is to gain profit from business activities, and any potential ESG goals are secondary to this main objective. Our identified disruption, MSCI or ESG investment disruption, affects this objective as it would affect EE's ability to obtain financing for business continuity and growth. So we decided that for EE to achieve sustainable growth and be resilient against this disruption, they can improve their sustainability reporting and build an ESG regulatory compliance team. This would help them to achieve potentially an MSCI leader rating, improve its resilience of attaining financing, which allows them to grow sustainably in the future.
Among all the risk treatment options, we have evaluated this to be the most ideal risk treatment to reduce the likelihood of them losing investment, which will be elaborated further in the next slide. Before we begin, pardon us for the slides might be a little confusing due to time constraint that we have. But our risk treatment proposed is essentially building an ESG compliance team in hope to achieve an average/leader rating in the Morgan Stanley Corporation Capital International rating. In order to increase the chances of scoring an average or leader rating, EE will have to primarily address two stakeholders concerned. The two stakeholders are Morgan Stanley Capital International and US Securities Exchange of Commission, SEC for short. So for the first stakeholders, MSCI is currently having an outlook to quantify risk, which was not a requirement only until recent years for ESG companies. To deliver and match its requirement, that's when the ESG compliance team comes in. The team would need to measure and quantify the amount of direct, indirect GHG emissions from their business operation, which coincidentally aligns with SEC's recent disclosure of ESG emission into the 3 scope to help investors make better judgment. Secondly, for SEC is currently in need to disclose information into the 4 segment as mentioned in the justification column. Things like appointing a registrant to the governance, creating an ESG framework to help identify ESG risks are written in the implementation. That's when the ESG compliance team comes in. It's also good to take note that it's unclear whether SEC would impose any other rules to manage and tackle ESG misconduct, because recently, in the upcoming years, they will be establishing an enforcement task force next year, and we don't know whether there will be other policies in place in the future. So that's when ESG regulatory compliance team can complement that potential threat, which these compliance teams will allow EE to react quicker to changes in regulation regarding to ESG, making EE more confident in delivering information that might be requested by the SEC in the future. Yeah. With ESG compliance team and both stakeholders' concerns addressed and a boost in their reporting standards, which was a concern raised in Q4, we believe that this risk treatment can highly increase the likelihood of achieving average/leader MSCI rating. Lastly, this is our timeline. We aim to build the ESG regulatory compliance team by first half of 2023 and submit of MSCI vetting by second half of 2023, while also ensuring regulatory monitoring and reporting is done for the upcoming years. With that, I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, CJ Square Group, for the presentation. And now I would like to turn to the judges for the discussion. Okay, approximately 15 minutes. So the judges, please. From Dr. Ouedraogo, maybe?
Yeah, okay, I have a question. Let's say that Emerson were in an environment with a less disciplined competitors. How do you think they can implement ESGs in such environment without losing their level of competition? Let me make it clear, because ESGs really comes with cost, right? So how do they perform those ESGs while keeping their position in the market?
Maybe I can begin first, then my teammates can add on. So in my take, in order to tackle the issue of instilling ESG while also maintaining its cost, that further strengthens our importance of for them to achieve an ESG rating. Because by achieving a good ESG rating, it sort of invites more investors in the future, high net worth clients, to further invest in that company, and that creates more cash flow for them to invest in ESG rating. So with that question, it further complements our need and dire need for us to achieve the ESG rating. Maybe Gio can follow up on that.
Yeah, I also want to add on that I agree that on one hand, the ESG is very costly, but on the other hand, I feel like we can implement ESG and become profitable at the same time. I think it's especially case for our client or EE, because they're currently in the businesses where they're like streamlining the processes to reduce energy. And so what they're doing is already ESG themselves. But what needs to be further done while maintaining these current businesses on par with competitor is that they just need to quantify what they've been doing to engage with stakeholders to convince they're still engaged in ESG while become profitable. And also I want to add on that in the long-term future, it is important for businesses in general to prepare for future where there's a high regulatory risk. I'd like to give example of automobile industry, for example. EU has recently set the regulation that by 2030, they ban sales of fuel engine cars, which is very abrupt considering it's 2022. So it is wise for businesses to prepare a future ahead where they have enough ESG to just build resilience for any future turbulences. Thank you.
Is there any comment or question, Dr. Ouedraogo?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, maybe the other judges, any other comment or question for this group?
Actually, I have a related question to Fred, so I don't mean to jump in front of the ladies, but I'll ask it now. Okay, let us take as given that the company doesn't want to implement ESG, Emerson. Do you think that's a rational decision? And if so, what are they basing the rationality on? Is my question clear?
Yep. So I think from the case itself, one reason for why Emerson has rejected to accept the resolution of, let's say, a better ESG reporting is because they feel that time and effort in terms of applying better reporting in terms of ESG standards is better put elsewhere. And they also felt that applying better reporting would maybe disclose some of their company information to their competitors. So
no, I'm asking you, do you think it's rational? Yes or no? Yes or no question.
Based on what
as of right now.
Yeah. Based on what we answered in the previous question again, I would say that it's not really rational because it's more of a short. This current approach is very short term. They're looking at short term profits and they're not looking at long term sustainable growth. They need to be more flexible and forward looking. And if I'm not wrong, the principle in terms of the ISO framework is acting on best information and continuous improving. They need to continuously improve their processes, and yeah, it's definitely not the right approach.
Yeah, and also to add on, because the statement was that they don't want to implement ESG like at all. Like if it's scaled to 1 to 10, they're like saying, oh, I'm not going to implement any related ESG policies. In that statement, I consider it like irrational because, as I mentioned previously, ESG can be really costly. But slight steps, it might not be very costly if we thinking of granting some employee welfare, for example. So I think they should at least consider and leave the option open for them to decide whether to implement ESG to a certain extent, rather than just disregarding the option at all when they're doing the risk management process.
Well, just a quick follow-up. I'll play the devil's advocate as usual. If you are the CEO of Emerson, why should you care what happens 5 or 10 years from now? You can take 10, 20, 50, $100 million of stock options over a 2 or 3 year period and leave the company.
Oh, if
but anyways,
I'm just, oh yeah.
Well, I'm just playing that. Can you? I guess the answer is they're rational, but in the short term. So you gave a great answer. Okay, but you gave a great answer. Okay, I'm finished.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Vitale. Okay, maybe the next judges.
I have a question. How does what your propositions, kind of your answer to question 5, how does that compare with what Walden was already wanting them to do? So, Walden was wanting them to basically report more, but then, obviously investors would look for ESG graded companies, using the index for Morgan Stanley Capital. But if they weren't willing to report based on what, Walden was asking of them, how likely is it that they would kind of, if you were to go to their board or their management team with this proposal, like how is what you're proposing different from what, an investor was already asking them to do?
Maybe I can take on this question first, and my team can add on afterwards. So I agree that Walden's approach and our approach is somewhat similar, but there's a pretty distinct difference. So basically for Walden's indications, when they pitched the ideas to EE, it was more of an obligation on EE's end to follow the routine. It was as if they do not comply with it, there will be a punishment that follows. But our idea is trying to pitch to the East board of, let's just say we were in the board of directors room, we are pitching the incentives that you will get if you achieve an MSCI rating. Because right now the company is not thinking in the economic consideration when they are engaging with Waldens. They just think Walden it was a linear approach by telling EEs that, hey, let's do it because I need my investors told you to do so. Compared to us pitching to them, it will be, hey, if you achieve this ESG rating, millions and millions of dollars will come in. So not only does it achieve an ESG the requirements, but it also brings in cash flow to the economic consideration that these CEOs are looking for. So it's a win-win situation for both. So MSCI rating, I think it was not really mentioned within the conversations between Walden and the directors itself. If we can bring that to the table, showing that, hey, this is not a punishment, this is not a requirement, this is not an obligation, I'm here to help, I'm here to bring money to your table. Yes, so this would be the slight difference that we have and the power of MSCI's rating in the future. Yeah.
Thank you. That's great.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Cowley. Okay, it's already 15 minutes for the discussion, so we have to end our discussion session. Thank you very much, CJ Square from International University of Singapore.
Thank you guys very much.
All right,
thank
ladies and
you.
gentlemen. Yes, the four groups already present their work, and now we are going to have a short refreshment for 30 minutes. Honorable judges and delegates, ladies and gentlemen, please return to this room at 3:30 Jakarta time. And we will continue with the announcement, the winners, the prizes, and closing remarks of this event. Honorable judges, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to ask you to enter the assigned breakout room. Thank you. See you in 30 minutes later.
stars across the sky. We'll go alone, you and I will find our way home. We'll go alone, you and I will find our way home. Headed to the northern lights. The night has just begun, and we only want to close our eyes and take a trip around the sun. Headed to the northern lights. The night has just begun, and we only want to close our eyes and take a trip around the sun. We head to a future that feels so blind. Soon enough, the still will pass. They're trying to keep us safe and sound, but we're living in a world of broken glass. Headed to the northern lights. The night has just begun, and we only want to close our eyes and take a trip around the sun. Headed to the northern lights. The night has just begun, and we only want to close our eyes and take a trip around the sun. We'll go alone, you and I will find our way home. Headed to the northern lights. The night has just begun, and we only want to close our eyes and take a trip around the sun. Headed to the northern lights. The night has just begun, and we only want to close our eyes and take a trip around the sun. Lost on the freeway. This must be LA. Tired and lonely, with no real place to stay. Is this the future? And where I'm gonna be? Last night it hit me when I had this crazy dream. I'm waking saw you back in 2003. Then you walked over and said you don't have to be alone. I don't have a crystal ball, there's no way that I could have known. I've been waking up in your house on a San Francisco street. We tuned out all the nasty weather, and it's something funny, you and me. Waking up in your house on a San Francisco street. We tuned out all the nasty weather, and it's something funny, something funny, you and me. Waking up in your house on a San Francisco street. We tuned out all the nasty weather, and it's something funny, you and me. Waking up in your house on a San Francisco street. We tuned out all the nasty weather, then it's something funny, you and me. San Francisco street, you and me. Something funny, you and me. You and me. San Francisco street, you and me. Oh. Back against the wall, there goes the floor beneath my feet. A stack of empty crates giving out under me. I'll take one more sleepless night, then book the cheapest flight to buy my head some space to clear. There's no time to cut and run, I can't think about what I've done to get me here. 2 miles off the ground with no clouds to be seen. Give me some air that's cold and clean. Love can't bring me down when I've taken myself way out of reach. Oh, we can smooth the fall, but you know this home is on the side. Try to split the chain to numbers that don't divide. Oh, take take one more sleepless night, and I'm on the cheapest flight. Give my head a chance to clear. There's no time to cut and run. I can't think about what I've done to get me here. 2 miles off the ground with no clouds to be seen. Give me some air that's cold and clean. Love can't bring me down when I've taken myself way out of reach. It happened so easy at the start. Got too used to being understood. Then one day I caught you looking down. Couldn't reach you like I thought I could. I never knew why you gave it all up. Is that it? Was there something I missed in the silences that we couldn't seem to break through? Should have known, needed more than this to hold on to you. Just tell me the truth. Who's got you singing again? Who put that light back in your eyes? Who's got you singing again? That thing you had, I wish I'd come back with the right lines. You threw down the blind, it was just a matter of time. I know that you've been a little restless. You're not the type to let it lie. But I'm here counting what I still got left. Was in the days when you gave it all up. Was that it? Is there something I missed in those silences that we never seem to break through? Should have known, needed more than this to hold on to you. Just tell me the truth. Who's got you singing again? Who put that light back in your eyes? Who's got you singing again? That thing you had, I wish I'd come back with the right lines. You threw down the blind, it was just a matter of time. Who's got you singing again?
Okay, the honorable ladies and gentlemen, the judges and the committee request additional 10 minutes for the discussion. The discussion about the winner. Okay, so we will start at 3:40 Jakarta time, 10 minutes more from now. Thank you.
Back in your eyes. Who's got you singing again? That thing you had, I wish I'd come back with the right lines. You threw down the blind, it was just a matter of time. Who's got you singing again? Who put that light back in your eyes? Who's got you singing again? That thing you had, you got it back. Never seen you move so easy. Never seen you laugh like that. Never knew how much I was missing. issues. Warning you, stay away. If we meet at the rendezvous, take me away, sun and rain. Darling, I got my trust issues. Warning you, stay away. If we meet at the rendezvous, take me away, sun and rain. Time and toys may fill my heart with joy. I'll know peace when I'm your lover boy. I'll be in school soul, silver and gold, new desire, friends uninformed. Call me lover boy. Darling, I got my trust issues. Warning you, stay away. If we meet at the rendezvous, take me away, sun and rain. Darling, I got my trust issues. Warning you, stay away. If we meet at the rendezvous, take me away, sun and rain. Call me lover boy. Darling, I got my trust issues. Warning you, stay away. If we meet at the rendezvous, take me away, sun and rain. Darling, I got my trust issues. Warning you, stay away. If we meet at the rendezvous, take me away, sun and rain.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the honorable guests and the honorable judges and delegates, welcome back to the Risk Challenge 2022. Okay. Welcome back, Dr. Haankuku, Dr. Cowley, Dr. Vitale, Dr. Robles, and Dr. Ouedraogo. And also, welcome back, CJ Square, Most Outstanding, Ceria, and Nonsense Consulting. Welcome back. On the last session, we've already listened to the presentations and discussions from the 4 groups finalists. And now, the most waited time, the announcement of the winner of the Risk Challenge 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, Okay, thank you. As we can see before, that is the prizes of the third place winner of the Race Challenge 2022. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite our sponsors of the Race Challenge 2022 to announce the winners. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, please welcome the representative of ERM Academy, Mr. Reynaldi Hartanto, LSP MKS, Miss Elita Johanna, and from Undergraduate Program of Management, Universitas Katolik Parahyangan, Indonesia, Dr. Brigita Milianti Sulungpedi. Hello, good afternoon in Jakarta time. Welcome, our representative of our sponsors. Okay, thank you for coming. Okay, the honorable judges and delegates, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to announce the winners of the Race Challenge 2022. But before that, I would like to invite the representative of ERM Academy, Mr. Reynaldi Hartanto, to congratulate our third winner. Okay, be ready, participants. Committee, where is the back sound? Okay, I will announce the winner, the third winner. Okay, in the third place, the third winner of the Race Challenge 2022, we have the one outstanding from Institut Teknologi Bandung, Indonesia. Congratulations! Okay, please, Mr. Reynaldi.
Wow, okay, very well. Congratulations to the most outstanding team. IT, right? So it's a representation actually, and yeah, really great for today. So I just want to congratulate you as a team, and as Irma has want to appreciate your result by giving a free pass for the Risk Beyond 2022 International Conference, and we do hope that you can join in this international conference, since we believe that this kind of conference also can give you a lot of insights in the risk management practices, especially for preparing the undergraduate students for entering later on in the workforce of risk management. So again, congratulations. It's back to you again, Deba. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Reynaldi, and congratulations to the most outstanding team from Institut Teknologi Bandung, Indonesia. Congratulations. Okay, the next position. All right, I would like to invite the representative of our sponsors, LSP MKS, Miss Elita Johanna. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to announce the second place for the winner of the Race Challenge 2022. The committee, be ready for the back sound. Okay. In the second place of the winner, the Race Challenge 2022. Okay. Drum, back sound, committee. Okay, and the second place, the winner, the race challenge 2022. We got. Okay, the second winner is the Nonsense Consulting Group from Shaheed Sukhdev College of Business Studies, University of Delhi, India. Congratulations! Would you like to congratulate them?
So thank you so much, and also kindly allow me as the representative of the MKS professional certification body MKS to congratulate the Nonsense Consulting Group as the second winner of the Risk Challenge Task Manager. We are glad to hear the announcement, and also to give our contribution for this event. Especially, we would like to sponsor the event with the MO for the Risk officer certification. And also, we hope through this exceptional initiative can be molded and implemented as a habit, and also to carry that in the professional world. Once again, congratulations for Nonsense Consulting Team, and thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Elita Johanna from LSPMK as our sponsors in the Risk Challenge 2022. And also congratulations for Nonsense Consulting Team for the second winner and the Risk Challenge 2022. Congratulations! Okay, the most weighted session, ladies and gentlemen. Without further ado, I would like to invite the representative of Undergraduate Program of Management Universitas Katolik Parahyangan, Indonesia, Dr. Brigitta Melianti Sulungbadi. Okay. Yes.
Hi.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Okay, committee. So where is the video of the prizes for the first winner? Okay, without further ado, I would like to announce. So, the first winner of the Race Challenge 2022. Yeah. And which team? Yeah. All right. I would like to announce the first winner of the Race Challenge 2022 is CJ Square from National University of Singapore. Congratulations. Okay.
So I would like to take the time to thank my team, thank the set up this event and all of us. And it's been a really, really great experience to learn about risk management, how intricate it can be. I believe all my teammates have a really, really great time. We love the intensity, we love the vibes, we love the music, it's just full of love. And yeah, thanks for the competition, and we're happy for the result. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, congratulations to the winner, to the first winner, the CG Square. Keep wonderful, keep inspiring for all the students, for all the undergraduate students. Thank you for participating in this competition. And once again, congratulations to all of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Brigitta. And congratulations once again for the first winner of the Risk Challenge 2022 CG Squared. Congratulations. Okay, thank you. Okay, the next, we will have a group photo session with all the winners. Okay, committee, maybe you can pin all the winners. Okay. Yeah. Committee is with the judges group photo session. Okay, only the winners. Right. Okay, I will count
with the judges, please.
Okay, with the judges. Okay, okay. Please pin the judges. Okay. Yes. Okay. Can we start, committee?
Please hold on.
Okay. Right. Yeah, I would like to invite Dr. Antonius Alejoyo as the founder of CRMS Indonesia to join us the group photo session with the judges and the winners.
Thank you, I'm invited.
Okay. We're still waiting for the committee manually put pinning the participants. Okay. Well, so here's the smile of the winners. Okay, committee, can we start? Committee? Committee? Okay, can we start? Okay. Once again, committee, can we start the group photo session?
Yes, sure.
Okay, I will count to 3 and I will take 2 photos. Okay, starting 1, 2, 3. Once again, 1, 2, 3. Please. Okay, thank you, the judges and all the winners. Okay. Yes. Yeah, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges and delegates, on behalf of the organizing committee, CRMS Indonesia and Undergraduate Program of Management Universitas Katolik Parahyangan Indonesia, we would like to say thank you. Thank you very much for all the judges and all the delegates. Thank you very much. Have a great day. And once again, congratulations for all the winners. See you in the Risk Challenge 2023. I am Deba Lutfia, signing off. Stay healthy and see you next time. Bye.
peradaban baru. Siapkan dirimu, kobarkan jiwa semangatmu. Tanamkan motivasi, wujudkan jati diri. Tebarkan semangat perubahan bagi semua orang. Mandiri dalam bekerja berkarya, optimis dalam berjuang untuk meraih masa depan. Bersama melangkah, satukan tekad dan harapan. Hadapi tantangan, hadapi ketidakpastian. Tanamkan motivasi,